All right, good evening. It's Thursday, May 8th. This is the Lunenburg Finance Committee, and I'm calling the meeting to order. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast over the Lunenburg Public Access channel and on Facebook Live on the Public Access Facebook page. If there's also a Zoom call on this, the Zoom meeting can be found at lunenburgma.gov under the, if you go to calendar and get the agenda for this meeting. And with that, if we can stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Announcements. I don't have any announcements. Let me make sure I'm watching the. All right. No announcements. Is there any public comment from the board?
I think you technically need to do a roll call because we have
For what?
in the meeting.
We will if we vote.
Usually, anyway, sure.
Okay. What?
When you have people remote, usually they do a roll call.
I don't do that.
Okay, sounds good. I'm cool with that.
Hey.
Hi.
Hi, Jay. Hi, Jean.
Hi.
They're there.
There you go.
See that there. We're good. Okay. Is there any public comment? There's no public, so any public comment from the board?
So weird.
All right. There's no town manager or finance director. They're enjoying some well-deserved time off.
Oh, I actually have a comment and a question. I was contacted today about the vendor fair that we're going to be having this Saturday, and they need volunteers for the. It's called the. They need volunteers for the dunk tank. Is that the thing?
Yep.
So they want people from the boards and commissions. So who's doing it? Like they have like more than a half a dozen openings, and it's a half-hour increment. So it's starting at 1 all the way into 6. Jay, you look like the kind of guy who'd like to get wet. You live in the lake.
Really? What does that look like?
Is this rain or shine? This
No,
fair?
I think they have I heard they have a rain date the following Saturday, I thought. Is that right? But I might be wrong.
Well, I mean, is it going to rain on Saturday?
I think so.
Okay, well, but anyway, who can sign up for it? Like, can we get 3 people? I mean, so
I'm not available on Saturday.
No, either.
Yeah,
I will not be
I'm not
sitting in
either.
a dunk tank.
come
Are
on.
you doing it?
I'm not going to be the only one, but you know, if I'm not the only one, Jay, Jean,
Yeah, I will not be available Saturday.
no one is available Saturday. All right, no volunteers in public and all, no one, you know.
Ask me
All right.
again on the rain date. I don't want to commit for like a drizzle. Like what if it's drizzling and they have it and I'm sitting in a dunk tank? That does not sound good.
You'll-
You know, you're a Parks and Rec person.
I know.
All right. Well, if anyone changes their mind, let me know.
Young blood for that.
What do you say?
I don't
I
know.
don't know. Can we get the volume turned up again? Is that volume? Like, what's that thing?
Jay, can you repeat that?
I said you need some young people for that.
Yeah, I guess. All right. Okay. Well, that was it.
No?
Okay.
All right.
Any other public comment going back? All right. So under new business, the first thing I had was just post-annual town meeting discussion and recommendations, if there's anything that we wanted to kind of talk about to kind of wrap up that, part of FY '26 budget season, which kind of officially ends at town meeting. I would open it. I know there's a lot of passion around some aspects of the town meeting and the votes and stuff. I don't really think I want to get involved in that. The votes are what they are, and decisions will be made going forward. But other than that, I do want to thank everyone, I guess, on this commission. In October, we were 4 people, I think. And I was pretty worried about getting through the budget season with an interim town manager. We were hiring a town manager, and I do want to thank everyone for, everyone that's been a member for a while, those that stepped up to take on new seats, and then all the work that everyone did to work with Jen, and Ezzy and in the departments to pull together the budgets. And I think everything that, we expected to happen at town meeting was going to happen, other than the kind of 3 big articles that were a bit of a wild card. So again, I want to thank everyone for that. But other than that, is there any other kind of thoughts, retrospective?
I just want to say that I thought the meeting was run very well. I thought that the moderator and all the present people who presented did a great job. I didn't really hear of any IT issues, which can happen with these things. So I thought the meeting went very well. I will say that I heard some clamor about, they only won by a couple of votes for certain things. And it's like, well, it's the people that show up get to vote. If you don't come to the town meeting, then you can't complain about not getting what you want. Same thing about elections and everything else. There's an election coming up for select board members, for many others, so vote. It's very important. So I think that overall I thought it was well done, and it took 8 hours, but that's what it was.
Yep.
Now, if they voted with the paddles, with the green and red paddles, then how long would it
Oh,
have
yeah.
taken? So technology is going strong in Lunenburg with the clickers.
Yeah.
I can't imagine.
Yeah, I think the clickers are a good addition to the meeting. I think it makes people who want to vote no more willing to vote no on certain articles and be the minority, so you get a true pulse of the votes associated with different things.
Agreed.
Yeah, and if we've had to do counts in the past, and it never comes out though. We can't count. You can't count people, I think, is the, so.
I heard from a lot of people that it was just an overload. In other words, having the town hall up, having Marshall Park up, having the override up, and people just were resistant to having, 21 million, 13 million, 2 million. So I wonder in the future if it would be better just to pull these pieces apart and try to vote on them, one at the special town meeting, one at the regular town meeting, and not try to put all of them together.
Yeah, that's certainly something we should talk about, maybe as we go into the recommendations for next year and going forward. I agree. We had a lot of big articles on on the agenda. The timing of all this stuff was, less than ideal. I know Marshall Park had wanted to be on, I think, the meeting before at least, and it just never got there.
Well, I mean, it's not accidental. Like these projects, the large projects that Jean mentioned, they've been on, on the process of creating the plan that they were created for many years. And the timing of best time to fund was now because we had excluded that expired. So the timing wasn't accidental. I think the school override last year, the school override this year are what popped up. But fiscally speaking, financially speaking, those two projects were aimed and targeted to be brought to the town around this time when we were done paying the library, when we were done paying the primary school, and when we were done paying for the public safety building. So.
Yeah, it is a lot to digest, though, in one meeting like that. I kind of agree with.
What are the processes and procedures of where the articles are placed on the voting timeline?
The select board and the town manager kind of put that
Figure it
together.
out.
Yeah, I mean, some articles naturally have to come before others.
Right.
Yeah.
I'd like to know how they decide.
I mean, they talk about it at their meeting. I forget the meeting they did it at, but you can go to the YouTube.
And watch all the meetings?
No, there's a way to do a transcription, and then you can search on it. So you can kind of
Yep,
search for a
yep.
keyword.
Yep. Control F and just put the word in.
Yeah, and then you can go right to that section of the video. Kind of a good feature of YouTube.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, thanks, Gene. Jay, did you have anything you wanted? You're the veteran here.
Well, yeah, I'm just similar to what Dean said, but just anytime you have the schools that are having the severe financial impact that they're having now, it's going to be very difficult, I think, to pass any additional money articles.
Yep. Okay. So the next topic I just wanted to start a discussion on, and it may be one that we have some dialogue over the next couple meetings and ultimately with the town manager, and maybe I should have announced that the school committee selected their choice for the new superintendent, so it was Jody Fortuna. All of the interviews are online, so if you want to see her interview, you can look at it. I think it was last Thursday, but they're all online. Jody Fortuna. So I think with her coming on board, and Jen, we have the opportunity, I think, to maybe do things differently than we have been doing. And I do think the notion of, budgeting really shouldn't be a January through April thing. It should be an all-year thing. Is really coming to, to the forefront. I think it's bubbling up that needs to be the practice. I know I've talked to Jen about that in the past, and she agreed with that. And I don't remember if Jody herself had said that, because I watched all 4 interviews, but I think all of the superintendents kind of had that same attitude that, budgeting isn't a season, it is an all-year kind of event. So with that in mind, some of the thoughts that I had is, why do we have the department heads come in, in February and March? Why don't they present, their needs and their organization and what's, their services and, everything that they give to the town, you know, maybe in the end of the year before, you know, November, October, November. And then we can focus more on the budgets associated with that and have, you know, their needs coming out. They would come out kind of both operational needs, and that's the time when we do capital needs as well. So, you know, perhaps that's what we need to strive for is to make the beginning of the year, the calendar year, more about preparing the budget and doing the analysis and making the recommendations with, you know, having had the discussions about the needs and the visions and the staffing and everything else kind of earlier. I think we could spread that out over a longer time. I think we could get down to, you know, 2-hour meetings, not 4 or 5-hour meetings. Because I know personally, you know, you come 11 o'clock at night, you can get pretty spent and just exhausted, right? So sometimes I'm not even thinking well at that time of night. So that was one thing I was thinking. I think the notion of kind of 3-year, 5-year plans, maybe it's only a 3-year plan, being put forward over the, you know, the summer and the fall, leading into budget season is something we have to strive for. I mean, this gets a little bit into maybe the next thing on the budget task force or how we do it. But, you know, those are some of my ideas on, you know, maybe how we can make the process a little more streamlined and more focused on what we need to at the right times. But I'm open to other suggestions.
Oh, I like that. Oh, you want to go?
No, you're going to go first.
I definitely like that. And I also would suggest like a preliminary budget presentation early in the fall so that we can go over it and ask questions and form a relationship. And it's not like we have to make a decision very close together to budget season. You know, another thing that I would love to see is working with town manager and working with finance, putting together a template that all departments will use so that they all look the same with an embedded tool in it with a budgeting plan in it so that they can mail merge or merge their information into it, but then also, you know, we can kind of put in like what we want to see. You know, I like the projection of the 3-year, but I think Anna was very smart in saying like, we want to see the past. So like maybe 3 years forward and 3 years back so that we can see how they ebb and flow and how they're using money and, you know, things like that. But I definitely like the idea of spreading it out. I like the idea of a very early, very, very early discussion happening. It doesn't have to be a submission, it doesn't have to be that, but it could just be a discussion when we invite department heads here just to talk about it, and maybe just give us something written of what they're doing and what they project. And that's a good starting point. So I think that's a great idea, Chris, so I agree with that.
I agree with everything said. The only caveat to it, which I think is the next item on the agenda or will come up soon, it's the budget task force and how these two tasks that we are talking about will overlap. So, you know, the select board reenacted the budget task force again, and it's not clear yet what they will be doing. I don't think they did any budget-related tasks associated that we just spoke about in their last session. But I know what they delivered, but their deliverable should have been a projection according to their charge. So if they are doing that, that's kind of overlaps with the budget because the projection is, you know, future budget. So the question is, who's doing what when?
Yeah.
Is that task force specific to schools?
No.
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 And it's not charged yet either.
Okay.
They haven't officially charged.
Okay.
Well, they talked about it, like when
They
we.
discussed it,
Oh,
but
okay.
they did not vote to actually put a charge forward yet.
Oh, okay.
they were discussing at their last meeting, potentially it's 2 finance committee members, a couple school board members, and then like a finance committee, a select board member. So they kind of went through a few, potential how to do it kind of things.
I think we should represent ourselves well there and kind of bring the ideas that we discuss here to that and try to work it in to both sides, like what our expectations are, what we want it to look like. And then, I think we have a really good seat at the table with a lot of really great folks, influential folks in the town. And I think it's made up of just like the right amount of people representing, so. It could be a plus for us to have a voice there, a big voice.
Yeah, so, one of the things when I think of forming a budget and like how you form a budget, how we form a budget at work is, you kind of start with a strategy, you start with goalposts maybe versus, an allocation of 2.5%. You may say, hey, you're like from 2 to 5 is your goalpost. You look at projections, you look at, staffing projections, but you start with kind of that vision and strategy, and then you drill down into the absolutes. And I think perhaps the way we've done it over the years, where all the departments just kind of come, you don't kind of see always what you're doing aligned to something that we're saying as a strategy, right? So just as an example, for thought, the recycling program has grown to almost $500,000 a year, a charge for us, right? Where in the past, that used to be almost nothing, because we would get money for a lot of the recycling. Additionally, the fire department is looking for a fourth shift for about $500,000 a year. So you sit there and you say, well, what's more important to the town, a fourth shift for the fire department, or supplementing $500,000 for a recycling program through the town? Well, maybe we need to move to bins. Maybe we need to start that, that transition to what is the future waste, and disposal recycling program look like for this town. And maybe you can kind of balance those things out and you say, okay, maybe we can't go all at once to, maybe we start with pay as you throw and a tote for recycling. And the tote for recycling has a sticker that costs you $100 a year for recycling. And with 5,000 homes approximately in town at $100, that, kind of the math almost seems to work, that you could then have a self-sustained program, right? The other thing we need to look at is what should be our self-sustained programs, and are they actually self-sustaining, right? So, we talked about parks. Should the rec director in the parks program ultimately get to the point where it's a self-sustained program?
Yes.
Yes.
And by doing so, what is the implications of that? What do we need to do for fees? What's our fee structure for things? Is there parity of fees across the town like we've talked about? So I think all of these things start to get into everyone have a conversation about how holistically does the town start to run, and then how do we put plans in place to get to that goal that you might save money, right? To me, that's different than let's go analyze a lot of data in a lot of other towns and look at projections and everything else, because you can do all of that, but if you don't have a pulse on where the town wants to go, then, it gets shot down at the ballot, right? So.
And that's a work that I've seen done, but we have not done it. And I do think one thing that the way you're talking, Chris, I do feel like there is a disconnect between what some boards talk about and what's important to them and the execution of things. The town manager leads most town employees, 98% of all town employees. She makes a decision, in this case we have a woman, so she makes a decision about the budget. But she's only she's mostly taking feedback from one entity only, the select board. All these other things that are happening in town are happening, in isolation, in silos, and that information doesn't cross. So yeah, so I do think we need to get into a more holistic process of running the town as one unit. So, the select board, and, talking about that, the select board did talk about so you said they didn't finish or approve, but they did talk about the charge of the budget task force. And for all senses and purposes are pretty much the same. And I think the outcome of that is going to be pretty much the outcome that we had before. If they're not more intentional. And I do look at different budgets, like I don't mind town government, so I read and learn about it. I think it would be great to have a multi-body meeting conversation about what is this really the project that this budget task force is taking, versus just create this charge in a vacuum in a meeting. They're pretty much the same, because we can end up with the same result. So I think it needs to be a more collaborative conversation to actually create an outline of a process that can actually yield what they want.
Yeah.
Do you think that with the addition of our new town manager, our new superintendent, maybe somebody, from, one of the new members from this board being on the budget task force?
We had a
committee?
person on the budget task
Would you think
force.
that's gonna make a difference? I think it could. I think we're gonna be shifting a little bit. Town manager seems extremely focused, and her strategic development of just being here for 3 months is pretty amazing. I think we've formed a good relationship with her already. I don't know what your relationship was with the last town manager, not the interim one, but I think that could make a real big difference on the way the town is going, and I think she has some really great visions. So I'm not sure if that makes a difference. Do you think that will make a difference?
I think we need to do a workshop. If you ask my opinion, like, oh, what is your suggestion? I think it would be a workshop of these stakeholders, or representative of them, to outline exactly what we're gonna do. And from there, we create the plan for the budget task force and what we're gonna be doing. That's what I think. If you ask me,
So
what should we do?
different members in the budget task force on this other committee that's gonna talk about it?
No,
first, or
no, it's
the same?
just talking about how to conceptualize, because they talked about having 2 members of the FinCom, 1 from the school committee, 1 from the select board, and a large member. So that was a good idea. But I think we should finalize that, what is the budget task force, together, versus being a charge from the select board, so it can be a richer, more defined.
We wanna see a focus statement on what the budget task force is actually doing.
And
And a description.
taking feedback from all the stakeholders, right? Like if they're asking 2 members for this committee to be part of it, I think we should put that charge together.
I would think the new select board, whoever they may be, will, if that's going to be what they're going to create, it's their job their idea to create the task force. I think we, as individual citizens or as a committee, can make recommendations to them and say, hey, we think we should have, X, Y, and Z, and do all that. I think that's, and then once it's created and it goes out and does what it's supposed to do. I think, from all the discussions we've had so far, I think one thing that's clear is that we do have these discussions about, well, what about the fire department and what about this? But we're having them in February and March and April. And we can't do much about it in February, March, and April. Now, maybe we can't do much about it in September and October, but we can certainly do more about it in September and October than we can. So I know And I've heard the town manager say that she is going to be asking her people to start working on their budgets for fiscal year '27 right away, to start putting together those numbers. Now, as far as income goes, we kind of know, we'll kind of have a good idea, relatively, what our income will be. And we'll know, we can guess at the cherry sheet. We'll know what our 2.5 increase will be. So we'll say, okay, there's the amount there and some other things, and we can put together an income that's estimated. We won't know what the insurance is, so we can say, what if it's 4? What if it's 5? What if it's 12? What if it's 20? And we can start making plans for various things. What things are coming due? We'll know most of the salaries of the currently employed people. If they're union and they have a 3-year contract and it's the second year, we'll be able to calculate what that is. And if we don't know, we'll do what we always do, is take a guess. And for the people that aren't, we can throw in, well, what if it's 2%? What if it's a 3% increase? And then we can create, sometime in September and October, a first look at income, and then look at the needs of the various departments. And then you can start making, kind of like what the capital committee does, saying, I like this, but I'm going to rank that 10th of the most important things we do. And I'm going to rank this number 1. And we can start to have those discussions, not just the finance committee and the select board, and the school committees and all the various different departments, but also the people, individual people. You can have months to discuss it. And then you can come back and say, oh, you know what? We found out that, all that work that we did at the State House we're going to get more money. Okay, great. And then we can start making adjustments to income or expenses. But we have more time to talk about it, more time to discuss it, and more time to plan for it. And I don't think that's, and that'll give more time for the various managers, both the superintendent and the various department managers and the town manager, to adjust, to say, yep, this is the year that money's going to be pretty good, so maybe we can do more of the things that we want to do, or this is the year that money's going to be pretty tight, so we're going to have to keel back our desires and and hope to just maintain what we currently have. Those are the things that I think would work. So I think, Chris, you were mentioning that of doing it earlier, getting the process started earlier, and I think that's something that we should be pushing, to get a budget, a draft budget, a pretend budget, whatever you want to call it, by September or at the very latest early October, and that'll give us time to discuss it.
Yeah, I think if you look at trends, which I tend to sometimes try to look at trends on things, a lot of stuff is pretty predictable. Chapter 7's been pretty predictable over the last 5 years. Like you said, salary's pretty predictable. New growth is pretty predictable. So I agree with your assessment that you can get to an 80-90% solution, and then you're making the final decisions based on having a long discussion about things.
And you'll come down to maybe having a 2-month discussion on, is it the 4th shift for the fire department, or if it's this, I don't know, something else. I get something else. And we could have the town, select board could have we could have meetings and ask for input just on ourselves, but on members of the community to say, what do they think is more important? And from that, we can get a better sense, and the town manager and the various will have a better sense. Our job is only to kind of monitor it, but I think it will get everybody more input. So I think it can't hurt. And I think waiting until January is it. I mean, you will get slightly better numbers, but I don't think those slightly better numbers are worth waiting all that time.
Right. Yep.
Quick question. I know this is the format of our meeting up here, sitting at this table. Is this how it has to be? Is this in the bylaws? Could we have like our preliminary meetings around that table with the department head, so it feels a little bit more personal?
We could do a picnic too.
We could do a picnic.
Yeah.
But
Outside
you know what I'm
under the
saying?
trees.
Like, take this, we're sitting up here and you're down there,
Yeah.
out of like off the table and let's sit down at a table and have a discussion with the department head, as opposed to like, we're up here, you're down there, and you have to, it's scary to some people.
Sure.
We could do it at the library. I mean, there's all sorts of ideas that we could have that we don't even have to do it in this building, right? I think we do a lot of things because of history. I mean, this is kind of a setup as hearings, right? This is a forum for hearings.
Right.
It's also easier for PAC to videotape it and all that, but
But we could be down there.
down there, I know the select board has done it down there on a few occasions, and I think I don't remember we doing it, I think we might have done something with another group, we were down there, I remember sitting down there for some
Yeah.
reason. So I guess you could, and I think that would be fine, but the goal is to get communication going.
Yeah.
Where the
More
DPW
personal.
is talking to
Yeah.
us,
Yeah.
we're asking questions, and vice versa.
A discussion as opposed to like a presentation. and
Right.
Questions, and then the public can still have space to be there if they want to say anything.
Is there any action on, but, did we just cover the budget task force, Drew?
Well, if anyone wants to talk about budget task force, I think that's fair game.
No, my question was there any action from this discussion, or no?
I'm gonna talk to Jen about, ultimately, it's her budget, right? She's the one charged with coming up with a budget. So I don't want to do something that's not in line with the way that she would want to do it. And we should be there to help support her through that. And then with the new superintendent coming in, Jody, we'll have to figure out what she wants from us, how she wants to interact with us. One thing she did say on her interview was that she likes to meet with I think she said, Finance Committee Chair at least quarterly. So that ongoing dialogue was something that she's valued in her prior roles. So I don't know if it was if it was me or the entire board, but
Again, maybe we can invite her to one of our upcoming meetings, have a discussion down there.
yep.
I think it would be nice to have the town manager come in at some point fairly soon to say, what is her expectations for next year? What is it? And if she says we're gonna do I don't think she's gonna say this, but if she said, just like we've always done, that's fine. From everything I've heard from what she says is that she wants to move things back. And I think if she says that, we can support her and say, yes, we would like to see something. So when do you think it's gonna be, September or October? And start to get from her, if that's where she's moving, where she thinks those are going, and then give our input to her.
Yep. Another resource for us can be the Association of Town Finance Committees through MMA.
Yep.
So we have access to all that material. They do seminars and lectures and stuff like that throughout the year. And they also have, I think, at least an annual 2-day event that you can go to, if anyone's interested in going. I know a couple of years ago, Dave Passios went and Evan went. They found it to be very valuable. You give up another Saturday or...
I think I tried to go, but I was just elected the day before.
Oh, okay.
There are no dunk tanks at
I was
this thing,
just
so
going
you're all
to
set.
pay for it myself, but that wasn't acceptable, so I missed it.
We actually have budget for that, so you
Okay,
do
so
not have to
I
pay
wouldn't
for
mind
yourself.
attending something like that. It would be nice if 2 of us would go, just so that we have, 2 people coming back with information in case somebody missed something or whatever.
There is a distinguished budget award that's given, at least, I don't know if it's still given, but I remember seeing it at one point, and Northborough had won it, and I kind of looked through their budget presentation and materials. So that gives you kind of best-in-class kind of aspirational things.
Also, you can make connections to other towns that go. A lot of towns send somebody every year just to be present. And if we can make those connections, then we can have open dialogues with like what works for them and
Yep.
what doesn't work with towns that are like us, not like Arlington, that's like 50,000 people. That's not the same. Like, it's just not the same.
Yep.
But towns that are kind of like us, our size, the way we run things, our culture.
Yep. And then, you know, the thing with schools is, you know, when Mike Cassidy was here, he gave a presentation that was, I think, more in line with the other departments. Then he left, and we had like the last year's, you know, 4 budgets going on simultaneously, and, you know, it was just hectic, right? So there was no real time to put that together. And then this year was, you know, new business manager, maybe not, we didn't communicate what the expectations were for that, but we'll have to communicate that going into next year with the superintendent and the school committee and their business manager or whatever they're gonna go forward with. Okay. Jean or Jay, any additional?
No, I agree with a lot that was, you know, said, trying to get an earlier start if possible. Obviously, you know, when you do an early start, though, it's hard to anticipate any, you know, unexpected expenses, especially through the winter time that may come up.
Okay.
Maybe we could enable the closed caption too on that, on the Zoom. Because then it would show up at the bottom in large print in case.
Oh.
I think that's an option.
I mean, there is a speaker here.
Sometimes it comes across funny, though. Okay. So I think we often have this meeting in May, and then everyone blinks, and it's September, right? Because the summer flies by, and it is harder to meet and do things. So, you know, maybe one of the things we should strive to do is have more, some of this be task-oriented, where, you know, someone goes off and works with Bill on the DPW aspects of things, or someone else goes off and works with departments, you know, on another project, because it does get hard to get quorum, I think, through the summer at least, but especially if we're going to be doing other assignments like the budget task force. I'm going to assume municipal building is going to meet through the summer to figure out what's next for that. Capital planning is also planning on, you know, establishing a, you know, 5-10-year capital plan through that. You know, 2 of the members on that committee will be leaving, Peter and Tom, I assume. Capital planning is kind of a funny one. But to the next topic, how do we want to try to run our meetings through the summer? Do we want to go to a once-a-month kind of thing? Do we want to, you know, try to continue with every other week? Any thoughts on that?
I mean, my suggestion would be to take the next 2 meetings and invite the superintendent, the new superintendent and the city town manager to have discussions about what they're looking for in the future and kind of dedicate a meeting to that.
Okay,
Then maybe go once a month in June and July, and then maybe have a couple meetings in August to get, if we're gonna be doing the September presentations,
okay.
maybe.
Let me talk with Jen on that. I'm sure Jen would be supportive of that. I don't want to assume that the new superintendent will have time out of the gate for that. I'm sure there's a lot of onboarding that needs to occur. They still need to negotiate a contract and stuff like that. So, you know, although she was selected, there's no contract in place yet.
How long does that usually take?
For Jen, I think it was like a week or something, or 2 weeks. It was pretty quick.
Well, if you invited her out on the 5th of June,
I will certainly reach out to her.
I think they should have a contract by then. That's crazy.
When she comes on board, I'll certainly reach out and
Okay.
introduce, yeah. Obviously, budget is gonna be something that's pressing, you know, for her right out of the gate, right?
Right. Yeah.
And, you know, they got 3 new members on the school committee as well, so they're, kind of a pretty junior board at this point, right? So they, Carol had been there for 7 years, and Peter for 3, and Brian for, I forget how long, has he been there 6 years or 4 years maybe? He's been there for quite a while. So I think that board will also have a little bit of,
Perfect opportunity for change.
I think there is opportunity for change. I will say that with everything that has transpired over the year, I think there is opportunity for change.
That's my suggestion for the summer.
Okay,
Because I don't want to be here every 2 weeks. It's like just for an hour
right.
if we don't have any.
Yeah, we can do Zoom stuff too if we need to. But yeah, I think especially July and August get very difficult. And even the beginning of September with back to, well, I don't know who has kids left anymore, but
Anybody else have thoughts?
No, that sounds fine to me.
okay. So do you want to meet in 2 weeks or do we want to meet in 4 weeks? I'm not even sure if,
The 22nd is 2 weeks, and the 5th is 4 weeks.
Yeah, I won't be able to make the 22nd, but
so it would actually be 5 weeks because it would be the second. So it would be June 12th. Or 2nd and 4th.
I think we should meet at least once before that and see if town manager will come,
Or do you want to meet in 2 weeks then?
I think. And I think that should be our,
Okay,
I just want to get on board with her before the summer starts so that we can start thinking about our once-a-month meetings and maximize what we want to do. But if we don't meet with her until the middle of June, then we won't really have, I like a lot of time. I like more time so that we can align
yep,
and, put some strategy into how we're gonna
okay,
move forward.
okay.
I agree.
All right, so we'll plan a meeting on May 22nd. Okay,
But we will miss you.
did I lose Jay?
You're not going to Florida this time of the year, right?
Not in Florida in May.
Okay, okay.
Too hot there.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, the next item, I have on here old business 2025 budget task force recommendations. That is something maybe everyone should reread. The other thing, if you guys want to take a look at, is I did pull together that debt projections. I think I've shared that with you before, but kind of poke around on that and kind of just see what our debt actually looks like. Because I think, one of the things the school started talking about was Turkey Hill. Is it a Turkey Hill renovation? Is it a Turkey Hill renovation without MSBA matching? And is it or is it a new build?
Are they gonna, I had requested their report, and they're like, oh, it's a draft report, but it seems like they have the official report.
I'll get that out to everyone. Brian had asked the superintendent, or maybe it was the business manager, to send that to me.
Okay.
So as soon as I get it, I'll send it off to folks. And maybe we can talk about it next. I guess they're projecting, schools are about, new schools are about $750 to $1,000 a square foot. So, this is a 9-figure potential build,
But they did get the report said,
potentially 57% reimbursement.
right, but the original report said that the building is good for renovation.
It did, yeah.
Yeah.
But again, I think this needs to get into that whole vision and strategy and goals discussion,
Yeah, so
that
yeah.
the whole town is kind of aligned on something and it's written down. And if they are starting to move towards recommending a new school, that sets us down this whole spiral of, well, what do you do with the old school and where does it go? And, you know, so, and there's still issues with, you know, TC Passios, right? I mean, that's going to be kind of, at some point, the back half shut down. You know, what are we going to do with that? And then, I know there's a lot of passion from some members on Brooks House, but I really don't envision anyone renting Brooks House personally.
I was driving by it the other day, and I was talking with somebody about the Brooks House. And, you know, the issue with Brooks House is that it's a house. And this is a church. They're not office buildings. There's a, you know, up here, there's a bell up here, you know, it's a church. And we can do all the things we can do and spend all sorts of money to get it to be what, you know, as best we can, but it's not built for that. So to me, and I mentioned it a couple of times at the Municipal Buildings Design Committee, that they should just try to sell it as a house. And whatever kind of rules we got to change to get it to be a house, and figure out how to get the land so that they have a backyard and a driveway, if we can, if it's possible. And then they could buy it, it's not in great shape, but they could buy it, someone could fix it all up, and maybe we get right of first refusal. So 20 years from now, they want to sell it, and we go, yeah, now we really want it, we could buy it back.
You're talking about residential house? Like
Yeah, I mean, I just can't imagine it being sold as a commercial unit. There's plenty of commercial space on 2A right now that is vacant, that office space or whatever, and I just don't see that as being, that area is residential. There's, across the street, there's houses, there's the library on one side, but beyond that, there are houses. So it's 2A, but it's still a residential area. Being a house does not, it's not standing alone by itself as a residential house. And I think that would be an easier process to sell.
I agree. Desirable location, close to town, close to a library for kids, close to schools.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it would,
Yeah.
somebody would want to do that. But to me, that's, you know, what they could do with that building. But there's a lot of people who just want to take a match to it, which, and burn it down, because it's, you know, and that, you know, that's another option I wouldn't be against if that's the way they wanted to go, but it's an old house that would be nice if someone could salvage it and fix it up and make it livable again. That would be nice, if they could. I don't think we, as a town, really have any use for it.
And not someone coming in building these like condo structures
No,
that
just,
are ugly and facing the wrong
no,
direction.
it would be a house. They would
Well, it would
fix-
look like that.
They would fix they would fix it up to make it look like it is now, only nicer.
Because what's to stop them from like just building whatever they want on?
Well, the,
Actually, there is the APDC, in the APD, there are restrictions
Like
to.
historical protection?
yeah.
No, it's not a historical protection. Let's make sure we're on the same page. It's architectural preservation. So it's the look and feel that the bylaw is a look and feel like, you know, a community that was founded during, you know, 1728, but not a historic preservation. But there are guidelines on how to do that. I think the thing with the Brooks House is that we just need to come to a conclusion on this. I mean, don't let my husband hear that. Like, can we just make a decision and not let the building, you know, like, let us not have to make the decision of demolishing because we didn't do anything about it, and then our only option is to demolish. And, you know, so.
Well, the longer it's been sitting there, I think the first thing we did is, well, someone can take it, we'll sell it to them for $1, they can lift it up, they'll buy the building and move it somewhere. That didn't work. So then somebody said at the I think it was the, one of the committees in town brought up, hey, let's ask the select board to spend time and figure out what to do with the building. And select board asked Municipal Building Committee, and we came back and said, you know, yeah, you can try to rent it out if you want, but that's all. So we're sitting here back at where it was. We can rent it out if we want to, but we would be putting, I can't imagine some business person coming in, looking at that building, saying, yeah, that's the place that I want to have my business at. And I'm going to throw in $50,000, $75,000, $100,000 to get it up to whatever it needs so I can run it as a business. Putting in it's just, and is the town going to be willing to put in $300,000, $400,000 into it? I don't think so. So to me, it's, find the path of least resistance, which is, it's a house, and I have never been inside of it, but from what I understand, it can be renovated back into a house, and that would be would be nice. But, I mean, that's really just my opinion.
In a couple of other towns where there's blight properties owned by the cities or towns, multiple cities and towns have torn down the building and added green space or soccer fields, or which we are lacking in Lunenburg.
I don't know if that would be big enough to do anything like that, but yeah, I mean, you could just tear it down and have more parking for the library. That would be fine.
Okay.
All right.
The next thing on our agenda, and I would like to get these, are the minutes from 3:27, 4:3, and 4:24.
I'm not dying on the minutes hill anymore.
Okay.
If this is the way that this committee, in this town, these minutes are acceptable, then I'm on board with that.
Okay.
It's just very different than what I've seen before. I've reread the last 10 minutes, did it today, took a very long time. Danielle does a great job. I don't want her to think that she's not. It's just not what I'm accustomed to seeing.
Yeah.
At a town level or a city level. But if everybody thinks that that's, acceptable, then I'm on board. So I'm not dying on that hill, and I will always accept the minutes.
Yeah, again, I think if you want to talk to like town manager about consistency and expectations on that and where there could be improvements, I would do that, and I would try to do it kind of across all the boards and commissions.
I just don't think it's worth it.
I think I agree
with
with you.
For years, and I just don't want, I have other fights to fight. The minutes is not one.
And I've had to write minutes.
Danielle has done a great job, so.
Yeah, okay. All right, so I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes of 3:27, 4:3, and 4:24.
So moved.
Second?
All right, all those in favor, roll call vote. Jean?
Aye.
Jay?
I did not read the.
Okay, so you'll
what was the last
abstain?
one?
What?
I only read 3:27 and 4:3.
So I'm saying I did those two.
All right, do you want to hold off on 4:24?
Well, I'll abstain if you want to. I didn't see 4:24. Where was that?
It was earlier this week, I think.
Yeah.
3:27 and 4:3 were in an email from Danielle that I read today.
They were posted on the R share.
I
Yeah, I didn't
forwarded
go into
it
them.
to Danielle.
Huh?
It was from you, I think, the minutes.
Oh.
These last ones.
Okay. All right, so Jay, I think you're abstaining. Anna?
Yeah.
I,
She said
Oh, aye, okay.
Yeah.
I thought you said,
oh,
Tanya?
aye.
Tom?
Aye.
All right, an aye for myself. All right, thank you for that. Any committee reports?
Just on the Municipal Building Design Committee, I don't think we're going to exist anymore. I don't know if because of the vote against the recommendation that there will be anything else, although there might be a new committee, I don't know. I know Selectman Jeffries has said he would stay on for a bit if the Select Board asked him to, but my gut feeling is that that the Select Board or somebody needs to take what was presented and maybe redo it that will be acceptable at another. meeting, because this building obviously needs to be renovated, and we need additional space for staff. So a no vote was heard at the meeting, but I don't think should be the final word. So my hope is that the select board will either ask the current committee to continue its work or to create a new one.
Yeah.
And committee member Jeffries did a phenomenal job, not only bringing in the need for the office space, but the community space. So I don't think we should give up.
No, I don't think there's a will to give up. Something needs to happen. Yeah. It's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Okay, any other committee reports?
Can I just know who's on what committee here? How do I?
We're going to do that, I think, let's do that at the next meeting as
Okay.
well. So committee assignments. I think when we got down to like 4 members, it was,
I bet.
Just
I
show
know-
up.
I know what committee you're on.
I know Jean does schools.
Right.
She's liaison to schools, which isn't a committee, I guess, but I'm on capital planning.
Some parks.
No.
Oh,
I had parks only because I
Yeah.
could get the notes right before walking out the door.
He can.
connections are everything.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, so we're pretty close. Action items, future meetings, I think we talked about. Town election is the 17th, from 7 to 5 at Turkey Hill. The next meeting will be May 22nd. And with that, is there any public comment?
This is strange.
Yes. So I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved? Second?
All right, roll call vote. Jean,
Aye.
Jay,
Aye.
Anna,
Aye.
Tanya,
Aye?
Tom,
Aye.
and an aye for myself. We are adjourned at 8:03.
All right.
Good night.
Good night,
Aye.
everyone.
Night.
Thank you.